Hello hunters, the pack is feeling restless today and we're looking for something to sink our teeth into. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. First, how many of you have watched the Monster Hunter Wilds debut trailer? I'm willing to bet that if you're here, most if not all have probably already seen this more times than you can count already. But second, what words do we think of when we see the Wilds trailer? Usually ideas of open, huge, expansive, or even exploration come to mind. What if I told you the Wilds trailer is a lot smaller than we originally thought? And to my knowledge, a deep analysis of the trailer hasn't been done to this degree and should provide insight into exactly where we are at a given moment. Knowledge is power in Monster Hunter, and by the time you finish this video, every hunter should know this sandy desert like the back of your hand. There will be an additional reason for this exercise at the end, so hold on to that thought for now. Before we begin, I want to give a quick shout out to our members. Thank you for supporting what I do here, and for viewers like you who continue to enable me to do what I do. I've loved the conversations we've had over Wilds and the Monster Hunter franchise as a whole, so to give back to the community, I'm giving away a copy. I'll announce the winner when Wilds comes available for pre-order, and we'll be delivering the game via GameKey, Steam Gift, or PayPal in the USD amount of the base version of the game. The Gleam link is in the description below, so get those entries in while you can. Let's get started. While we've already gotten confirmation that we won't see any hints teased for the 20th anniversary, and though I anticipated that much, I wanted to revisit an idea that I've had since the trailer's debut back in December. Something we can sink our teeth into. You see, Monster Hunter is a game that requires us to maintain situational awareness at all times. Veteran hunters know exactly what I'm talking about here. We rely on our equipment, our positioning, our environment, and our items at any given moment. Unlike some who would suggest they could defeat notorious monsters with their eyes closed or blindfolded, any skilled hunter understands that they need to rely on all of our senses and tools at our disposal. This puts a very heavy emphasis on our position relative to the monster and any dangers outside of that can put us at risk. With our weapons alone, we can see how this bears true. Lighter and faster weapons are much more forgiving, but ask any hammer, horn, or greatsword user and they'll tell you that positioning and monster posture are everything. Timing our swings becomes far more costly, especially when the attack doesn't connect and we're vulnerable to counterattack. When we understand the environment and our place within it, we maintain one step ahead in the tempo of our dance and our hunts. We're ready to set up for the next swing, we're ready to cancel into our next move, or we're in a strong position to time the iframes of our roll to absorb an attack. Think about it. If you're confronting a monster you're unfamiliar with, what are you doing? You're watching the monster's behavior, the way it skulks or slithers or jumps, the way it rears or postures before an attack. You're reading the monster's movements and body language to understand its tells. Additionally, as a hunter, you're always aware of the environment you're in. Is there mud that would slow your movement? Is the cold impacting your stamina? Are there pitfalls and traps that you could use to your advantage? As a Soulsborne veteran who's no stranger to fighting large monsters, maintaining situational awareness at all times, and kitting myself out for the next challenge, you cannot tell me that the Monster Hunter player base aren't a cut above the rest, standing in the face of insurmountable odds and ready to adapt to a given situation at a moment's notice. In fact, when my friends were trying to get me into Monster Hunter, that's exactly how they sold it to me. Giant monsters acting as the barrier to my progression in the game, and the challenge to earmark my skills against, requiring me to prepare for the fight, read the monster on the fly, and respond accordingly. Whether consciously or subconsciously, these are things that every hunter knows. Your mind is constantly evaluating the situation before you and where you fall in it. You're striving for situational mastery in your dance with these monsters, seeking to stay one step ahead of every move they make. So, while this video might be a touch premature, I thought it would be a fun little training exercise to embark on. In fact, the one clue we need is in the single camera angle at the end of the trailer. It's with this in mind that we're going to chart the course of the trailer, giving us a broader understanding of the where that's being presented. This will be valuable insight not just to the environment, but also how we can navigate it, and give us an understanding of what sort of playing field we're working with here, both in respect to what areas can be traversed and what sort of autonomy we have within it. If we can tackle this now, we might be able to correlate key positional data in future teasers. This would give us details to chart our proximity from the current trailer and insight as to just how open this world might be. If the second teaser gives us a similar cinematic presentation, you better believe I'm going to be looking out for the locations I'll be mentioning here. Let's dive in. As a visual aid, we're going to need a second perspective. Here I'm going to diagram, to the best of my ability, the camera's location and perspective as we proceed through the trailer. Right from the start, we're following the riverbed displayed in the final camera angle, facing towards the right of our field of view. The pangolins appear to be following the riverbed as it hugs the left side of the crags where we'd find the large fulgurite structure affixed to it. The moment the perspective changes, we can see a familiar rock face in the distance. This appears to be deep right, behind the perspective of the final camera angle where you can see a lightning rod that was tucked away here in the foreground, and the one in the background which will be prominent at the end of the trailer. These are all prominent visual elements of the trailer. I've historically done videos on the symbolism that Capcom presents, calling attention to the lightning rods and what they could mean, for instance. We've been theory crafting on this location quite a bit, mostly drawing attention to the things we see in the trailer. As we speculate on these ideas, it's important to remember that Capcom's messaging isn't just what's communicated in what we see, but also in what we don't. It was in my video about the where of the trailer that we started to piece together the types of real-world examples Capcom appears to be drawing inspiration from. In line with their ecological authenticity and biological diversity, the Monster Hunter team is taking beats from nature around us. This has been a valuable clue about the type of environments we can expect in Wilds as more information releases. But while that video was drawing examples of where in the real world, today we're going to be dissecting the where in the trailer. Not what might be coming, but instead what actually exists in the information we already have. Great, we've got some panoramic shots here, and I appreciate the aesthetic, but next is where we'll see it all come together. The next series of shots follows the hunter, telling a story of the storm that would follow. We see the new mount, a flat dune of sand, as 6 woolly monsters crest the horizon. We can tell from the lone lightning rod and the shape of the framing rocks on either side that the hunter is coming toward our field of view on the right-hand side. From the hunter's perspective, we can see the fulgurite on the left, meaning he's crossing in front of the field of view where multiple lightning rods are visible in both shots. Looking behind the hunter, we see him lean left as the storm overtakes him, and it's on the left here where the hunter circles the lightning rod and the pangolins. For a very fraction of a second, we can see both the lightning rods as well as the stone pillar in the shot before the hunter makes his escape, where we can see the tilted lightning rod as well as the upright one in the background. What I find interesting is where the storm came from just moments ago. Taking it back just a bit, we can see the cloud sweep in from the right. This is from behind the hunter, emphasizing that we're looking at the left-hand side of the final panorama as the lightning storm ushers in. It's here that the hunter doubles back up to the high ground of the fulgurite seen in the trailer earlier, and that's where we see the lightning rod we mentioned was tucked away. And it's this shot where we see the final panorama unfold, giving us a bird's eye view of the entirety of the trailer's featured environment. Overall, it's a good bit smaller than we originally believed. I do acknowledge that a 90-second cinematic trailer isn't exactly representative of the final product, and when compared to quite literally any of the other Monster Hunter games in the series, we know there will be much more world left to uncover in Wilds. We have yet to see more of the environments the Monster Hunter team has planned, more of the monsters they plan to bring back, or more new monsters they plan to introduce. I mean, we haven't even seen the village yet, and that in and of itself is a full map on its own. But the more we analyze these things in the here and now, the more we speculate on, the more we get wrong, and the more we learn along the way, will all be valuable as greater insight and thought experiments on how we'll interpret the next trailer we'll see. When Capcom brings us our next update, we'll already have a catalog of ideas and a frame of reference to work from, acting as a lens to interpret new data through. One additional point I want to make is as the dust cloud sweeps over the landscape. There's been some debate on what's happening here, with a number of comments convinced the wind is just blowing the dust off the grass. I'll put that to rest for you real quick. Along with the grass sprouting, we can actually see green leaves growing on the trees where the branches had been empty prior. This is the passage of time meant to represent vegetative growth throughout the course of the year. This is further emphasized by the direction that the storm came from, starting here on the top right and sweeping left toward the camera where we were following the hunter throughout the trailer. This is in direct contrast to what we see here, where the dust spreads forward evenly with our camera perspective at its source. This isn't dust at all, as if remnants of the storm, and instead signifies a transition from desolate to growth. So we've gone through all this, why is it important? Was this just a simple exercise to familiarize hunters with a trailer we've already seen countless times? And that's where I turn to you. We've talked so much about an open world to the point that it's become a buzzword around Wilds and what it could be. We see large stretches of land in the vast wilderness, but when we take into account how much of it the hunter actually traversed, the land covered is relatively small. Is it possible this might be suggesting a segmented open world? More akin to what we got in Monster Hunter World, where the maps were large but we didn't have the ability to free roam? Or is it too early to tell just how open this world in Monster Hunter Wilds will be? Do you feel the passage of time represented by the grass and leaves blooming could suggest seasonal patterns? And if so, would it be too ambitious to make reality in a fully open world? It's an exciting time for Monster Hunter fans. We're just days away from the 20th anniversary, so mark your calendars for Tuesday, March 12th, where Capcom will be hosting the special program at 4 a.m. Pacific, 7 a.m. Eastern, and 11 a.m. GMT. But I want to know, who did you vote for as your number one? I'm Jade, and I'm covering as much Monster Hunter Wilds as I can between now and the game's release. So to all hunters, old and new, may the Sapphire Star guide your way. Until the next video, I'll see you in the comments below.